I knew my marriage was over the moment my neighbor smiled at Ryan and waved like he'd seen him 100 times before. She wasn't surprised. She wasn't confused. She simply called out, "Morning, Ryan." My husband slowly turned toward me, then toward her, then back to Ryan. Nobody spoke, because nobody knew how to explain why the woman across the street knew another man by name. People think affairs are uncovered by dramatic mistakes. A lipstick stain, a hotel receipt, a text message sent to the wrong person. Mine unraveled because someone was simply being neighborly. Ryan had never planned to become part of my neighborhood. That was the rule. Work stayed at work. Home stayed home. For almost a year, we followed it. Then one rainy afternoon, he picked me up because my car was in the shop. The next week, he stopped by for coffee, then lunch. Eventually, he came often enough that it stopped feeling unusual, at least to me. Apparently, it stopped feeling unusual to the neighbors, too. Noah traveled often for work, usually 2 or 3 days at a time. Everyone on the street knew his truck. They also knew when it wasn't there. I convinced myself nobody paid attention. I couldn't have been more wrong. Our street was the kind where everyone waved. Kids played basketball in the road. People borrowed ladders. Packages were carried onto porches before rainstorms. The neighbors noticed everything, just never enough to seem intrusive. Mrs. Donnelly lived directly across from us. Retired school teacher, always outside watering flowers, always smiling, always remembering everyone's birthday. She knew every dog by name, every child's favorite candy. Apparently, she knew Ryan too. The Saturday everything ended started normally. Noah had just returned from a 3-day business trip. We decided to spend the afternoon cleaning the garage. Music played through an old radio. The garage door stayed open. Neighbors wandered by saying hello. Nothing felt unusual. Around noon, someone knocked on the open garage frame. It was Mrs. Donnelly, holding a plate of blueberry muffins. "Welcome home, Noah." He thanked her warmly. They chatted for a few minutes. Then, a pickup truck slowly rolled down our street. Ryan's truck. He wasn't coming to see me. At least, not intentionally. He'd left a folder in my garage earlier that week. He'd texted asking if he could swing by and grab it. I'd completely forgotten Noah was home. Ryan pulled into the driveway, saw Noah, immediately looked uncomfortable. I felt my stomach drop. Noah smiled politely. "Hey, Ryan." Ryan forced a smile. "Afternoon." Before anyone could say another word, Mrs. Donnelly beamed, raised her hand. "Good to see you again, Ryan." He smiled automatically. "Morning, Mrs. Donnelly." She laughed. "I was wondering where you'd been." Everything stopped. Noah looked at her. "You know Ryan?" She chuckled. "Of course. He comes by all the time." Silence. Not awkward silence, dangerous silence. Mrs. Donnelly didn't notice. "I usually see him when you're traveling." My knees almost gave out. Ryan closed his eyes. Just for a second. Noah's expression never changed. He simply asked, "Oh?" Mrs. Donnelly nodded. "Such a polite young man." "He always waves." Another pause. "I figured he was helping Claire while you were away." Nobody breathed. Not me. Not Ryan. Mrs. Donnelly finally looked around. Her smile slowly faded. "Was I not supposed to say that?" Noah answered gently. "No." Another pause. "But I'm glad you did." She looked horrified. I I didn't mean." Noah smiled kindly. "You didn't do anything wrong." She quietly apologized and hurried back across the street, still carrying the empty muffin plate. Ryan stared at the driveway, unable to move. "When did you find out?" I whispered. Noah looked at me. 5 months ago. 5 months? 5 months of dinners, movie nights. Weekend trips, conversations, 5 months of him already knowing. Every memory shifted. The patience, the quiet, the kindness. He wasn't gathering evidence. He was waiting to see whether the truth would eventually introduce itself. Ryan finally spoke. I'm sorry. Noah nodded. I believe you are. Another long silence. But apologies don't change routines. Ryan looked confused. Noah glanced toward Mrs. Donnelly's house. She didn't recognize you because she saw you once. Pause. Nah. She recognized you because you became part of the neighborhood. The sentence hit harder than anything else. Ryan hadn't been a visitor anymore. He'd become familiar, expected, ordinary. Ryan quietly walked back to his truck. He never picked up the folder. He never looked at me again. He simply drove away. The sound of his engine disappeared down the street. Noah and I stood alone in the open garage. The radio still playing softly. Neighbors mowing lawns, children riding bikes. Life continued. Noah reached onto a shelf, picked up a large envelope. Divorce papers. Already signed. Already dated. Already waiting. I stared at them, then quietly asked, why didn't you confront me when you first knew? Noah looked across the street. Mrs. Donnelly had gone back to watering her flowers, like nothing had happened. Because neighborhoods are honest. I frowned. What does that mean? He smiled sadly. People wave at the faces they see often. Another pause. They don't realize they're keeping count. He handed me the envelope. I wasn't waiting for a confession. He looked toward the empty driveway where Ryan's truck had been. I was waiting to find out whether another man had become normal. A long silence settled between us. Then he quietly added, and today, the neighborhood answered for you. He walked into the house, leaving the garage door open. I stood there until evening, watching neighbors wave to one another as they always had, smiling, talking, living ordinary lives. I still think about Mrs. Donnelly sometimes. Her flowers, her muffins, her friendly smile. Not because she exposed my affair. Not because she ended my marriage. Not even because she spoke without thinking. The worst part was realizing she hadn't revealed a secret. She simply treated Ryan the way she treated everyone who belonged on our street. And in that ordinary, innocent wave, I finally understood how long I'd allowed another man to become part of a life that was supposed to belong only to my husband.